Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Hot for Teacher. It's episode number 30. I've been doing this for 30 episodes. That's what, 90 questions. It's not bad. That's a lot of ground to cover, and there's still so many to answer, which is, I guess, what we're doing here today. We're going to answer some questions. If you haven't watched an episode of Hot for Teacher before, if this is your first time tuning in or checking out the videos, Hot for Teacher is a spinoff of the much longer running granddaddy of Adam Koebel advice shows. The family's very small. There's only 2 of them. We do another show called Office Hours, which is the originator of kind of the format for me. And in Office Hours, we answer questions about role-playing games, predominantly about how to be a game master. And over the course of doing that show, we realized that a lot of the advice that I was handing out was just relationship advice, the relationship between 2 players, the relationship between a GM and a player, the group's relationship with itself, the relationship with the rules. And I thought, if we're talking about all this relationship stuff already, why don't we set aside some time to just talk about relationships? Why don't we, I was going to say take the role-playing games out of the equation, but I feel like that's impossible. You know it's impossible. I know it's impossible. We still talk about RPGs on Hot for Teacher, but the core focus is that you, my audience, submit questions to me. And these can be questions about your particular situation. They can be questions about relationships and relationship structure in general. Usually, whatever it is that you've got on your mind, whatever it is it's digging at you that you want to talk about, is probably on someone else's mind too, right? And that's what I've loved so much about doing the show so far, is that the questions that come in, I see the comments on YouTube, or I see chat on Twitch responding very positively, being like, "Oh, I have this issue," or "I've been in that position before. I know what that feels like." And it's the same for me when I pick questions. A lot of them I empathize with deeply. So it's a nice way to kind of connect and talk about that stuff through the lens of 3 people's questions. So I have 3 questions before us today. They were submitted to me by you. Maybe not you specifically, but you in general, at my website, which is www.adam-koebel.com. There's a Hot for Teacher link. You can click on it and you fill out that form. Unlike Office Hours, you don't have to record your voice if you don't want to. I mean, you don't have to do it for Office Hours either. We had somebody do a robot recording. So, I will read the question for you. Hot for Teacher is meant to give you a little room to be anonymous, because sometimes these kinds of questions can feel exposing. They can feel like we don't, or sometimes we want to talk about somebody and we don't want them to know that we're talking about them. So the names may have been changed, but the details are true. So we're going to answer 3 questions today, starting with one from an anonymous submitter. And our anonymous submitter says, "Hello. I have a problem with my low self-esteem and how it affects other people. Because I see myself as a weak and useless procrastinator. Every time I see other people fail at some things, I would get angry at them, disappointed in them. After all, if such a pathetic whelp that I am could do that, what excuse do they have? This puts a strain on my relationships with other people and manages to combine self-loathing and narcissism in one neat package of awful." That is awful. I'm sorry that you feel that way. Obviously, I'm wrong. That's true. My mind understands that I am, in fact, a person clearly competent in some areas, and this is highly unreasonable of me, but this understanding doesn't stop the feelings I'm having from happening. How do I cope with that? And how do I grow out of this nonsense? Well, I think one thing that you can do just from the get-go, we'll start with the end of your question. I think one thing you can do is not think of it as something you need to grow out of, right? This isn't childish necessarily, right? It is nonsense in the sense that you and the people around you, you all have value, and even the most distraught, in a bad place human being is still a person. Right? So it's not nonsense. These are feelings you're having. The thing that you're upset about is the way that you react to those feelings and how it is causing hurt and confusion and problems for you and the people around you. So I think this is true of a lot of stuff where it comes from negative ideation or feeling bad about stuff. recognizing that, like, being hard on yourself and the way that frustration, that internal frustration exhibits itself on other people, it is real, and it's not like childish, and it's not like abnormal. Like, everybody struggles with stuff like this. I think to some degree or another, everybody has these feelings of self-loathing or frustration with one's own abilities or the way somebody is. We all think that there are things about us that we are not happy with, that we want to change. And that's normal. And I don't think you ever grow out of that. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make, is that if you think about, like, how do I grow out of this nonsense? 20 years from now or 30 years from now, you're still going to have these feelings, right? Like, we can see a therapist, which you should do if you can, if that's something that makes sense for you. But see a therapist. We should get help. We should work on these things. We should continually attempt to progress towards being a better version of ourselves, whatever metric we use to measure that. But part of that is accepting that there will always be stuff we're unhappy with. I think if you find someone who tells you that they think that they're perfect, that they're like, oh, I'm done, I'm good, I'm content with everything about who I am, you have found yourself a liar, right? Now, this isn't to say that we can't do that work and end up in a better place, but it's not the feelings that'll go away necessarily. It's how we cope with them, right? And this is something that I think is helpful for thinking about in the short term, in the long term, and for anybody, not just anonymous, but for anyone who is having feelings that they don't like, that are causing them stress and strife, right? Like, when I'm feeling upset or stressed out or frustrated or snapping at somebody or just being shitty, if I know that that's happening, something that helps me start on a path towards recognition and adapting is to say to myself, like, okay, these feelings are real. They suck, and I feel shitty about them, but they're real, right? I am feeling angry, and I'm not going to judge that. I'm not going to feel like upset with myself, because then you're just layering shittiness on top of shittiness, and you do not want this geological stratum of bad emotions, because you're going to get buried under all that, right? What you want is to just acknowledge that this is a thing that you are feeling, right? I feel crappy about something, and once you kind of take a minute to pause and to think about that and to acknowledge that you're feeling that way, it can give you a little bit of room to look at how you're reacting to that feeling. And I think that is the thing that we can change. You can't help how you feel, but you can help what you do with that. Like, if I am playing a video game, this is just like a real, like, silly, like, little example, but if I am playing a video game and I'm finding myself, like, really frustrated, I'm fighting a boss and it's really hard, and chat's teasing me about it, and I'm finding myself, I'm getting upset, right? I'm feeling like, fuck this, and fuck you for giving me a hard time, for not being perfect at this, and, like, I don't want to do this, and I'm just getting angry. The first thing I do is just, like, take a breath. Just, like, okay, I'm allowed to feel frustrated. I'm having a frustrating experience. There are things that are going on that are bothering me. How am I going to react to this, right? How do I want to react to this thing? Now, I could throw my controller out the window, and I could flip my computer table over, and I could yank the internet out of the wall, and then I could go drive my car off a cliff. But I don't actually want that. That's not a decision that I'm making for myself. I'm letting that frustration bypass my own self-interest. Like, you, Anonymous, does not want to feel these feelings, and unfortunately that's not going to be something that you're going to be able to avoid, Anonymous, but they also don't want to be shitty to the people around them. They don't want to be shitty to themselves, and I think that you can't start changing the way that you react without first acknowledging your feelings. So it's okay. We all have things about ourselves, some percentage of our personality that we are sick of. We all annoy ourselves, feel like we're lazy or stupid or whatever. Everybody has their thing, whatever your thing is. I think it's important to recognize that stuff and to see how we respond to it. and recognize those patterns and see what isn't healthy, right? Because I think that feeling like a little frustrated with yourself and feeling a little like there can be some motivation there, but you need to make sure it's safe. Like if your reaction to, well, I fucked up again, what a piece of shit I am, if that's your reaction to like missing a deadline or making a mistake, making mistakes and reflecting on it isn't going to be healthy for you. So you need to get to that place. And this is all really just talking about Anon's like personal stuff. We haven't really gotten to the question yet, right? Because what our anonymous question asker here is actually asking is, how do I avoid or how do I deal with that reflection thing? Okay, so in like old Final Fantasy games where like you're fighting a boss and they've got a magic wall up and you want to hurt them, but you can't. So you have to cast a wall on yourself and bounce the spell back at them. That's what's happening here. Is that Anonymous is trying to hurt themselves psychically. They're saying like, I'm crap, I'm a jerk, I'm garbage, nobody should like me, and I'm still like getting by. I'm still gonna get through this. And if I can do that, then wow, everybody else must also be garbage. And that's rough. That is rough. I think that's also normal too. I think that self-loathing is a lot more complicated than throwing a temper tantrum and hating yourself. I think that self-loathing can, as our question asker here illustrates, can really fuck up everything else. And this is sort of the flip side of that kind of trite, not very useful advice of like, well, you got to love yourself before you love anyone else. Like this is the inverse. If you hate yourself, you're going to hate everybody else too, because you see things about yourself in them, right? It's this whole negative reflection of the way you don't value yourself and how that is dragging everyone else down. But you have an advantage, anonymous question asker. You have a secret plan. You have already begun. Because this was even pointed out in chat, this is evidence of really great self-identification. Like you know what's going on in your brain. It's not like you're flailing around in the dark here. Like I know for a fact that when you do these things, you feel bad about them, right? You are aware of your own self-loathing. You are aware of how this stuff happens, and you're struggling with how to not do it, right? How do you change your behavior? And that's tough, right? And it's a different question for everybody, right? Because some people have a very hard time quitting negative things in their life. Sometimes people get into relationships and they have a really hard time getting out, even after they know that the relationship is not healthy for them. Some people have a really hard time quitting smoking, or some people have a really hard time, like the way that we can get out of the bad things that are happening to us varies. So I could say to you, like, just take a minute to think, like I said, right? Like when you feel those feelings, when you feel the judgmental feelings about yourself or about other people, take a second, take a deep breath, think about what you want to do and how you want to react, and then move forward. But it might not be that easy for you. Right? That's how it is for me. That's where I can sort of come from into the space, but it might be different for you. And I think that as with just about everything else, the more you know, the better. And I think that you have already started down a really great path. I think the other thing is acknowledging like you're going to goof it up, right? Like you're going to try and you're going to fail. You're going to keep judging people. You're going to keep judging yourself. And it's not the end of the world. I think we get into this thing, and God knows that I do this, where if I'm struggling with something, say I'm trying to like eat better or like build a new habit or like whatever, as soon as I fail once, like if I'm like, I'm not going to eat anything after 8 p.m. As soon as I have that like 9 p.m. snack, I'm like, fuck it. I guess I failed. I'm a huge failure. Why did I even bother? I'm just, you know what? Don't worry about it. That was a stupid idea. I'm obviously incompetent. I'm just going to forget that I ever tried. But that's not how that works, right? Like it's so easy. And I think everybody does this, right? I was talking to somebody about debt, and how there's this thing where over a certain amount of money, say like, I think it was like $3,000. I mean, if you have a debt of $3,000 or more, and you live in like North America, this is very like, Western North American centric thing. But if you have a debt over $3,000, your likelihood of saying, well, fuck it, I'll never pay it off is very, very high. And I think this is true of a lot of behaviors where people will just say, well, I'm just never going to change. I'm a piece of shit and I'm just going to be a piece of shit forever. So there's no point trying to change it. And it's really great, anonymous question asker, that you're not at that point. That you are like aware that you want to change and you're going to try. So I think the best approach here is to just like slow down. I think that we try really hard to solve our problems quickly. And we try to be different fast, and it's very hard to do that. So don't think that there's any way that you're going to just suddenly, like you said, like grow out of it. It's not going to be like, happy birthday, you're 32, and now you're a good person. You finally grew out of all those bad habits. That nonsense is going to stick with you, and there may be deep-seated reasons why you see yourself as, like you say, a weak and useless procrastinator. You're not useless. I don't think you're weak. You reached out for help. That takes guts, right? It takes something. So you will find, I think, that if you slow it down, if you take a minute to center yourself, you take a minute to think about and like reflect on your feelings. And this doesn't even have to be in the moment. This can be keeping a journal at the end of every day. This can be looking back and saying, what did I feel today? What happened? Are there things causing that? When do I feel more bad about myself than other times? What kinds of things trigger this stuff? Focus on like what gets you feeling that way, but don't just do it about the negative stuff, right? This is the thing. Give yourself some room to reflect on the good stuff too. Get used to the idea of being stoked about the things you did that you're proud of or happy about, right? Like I would suffocate under the weight of everything that I didn't get done, right? I would drown in a sea of feeling like I'm letting people down if I didn't also temper it by saying, but look at all of the things that I did do. Look at all of the things that I did today that I'm happy about or that I'm proud of. Because I bet you there are some of those. And that part of your brain that thinks that you're shitty is going to fight you on that. It's going to be like, no, that's irrelevant. That's not important. Write it down anyway, right? Learn to free yourself from that judgment, even just in the moment of writing down like everything you did in the day. Try to find things that help balance out that feeling, because I think you're probably not as big a procrastinator or not as much of a pathetic whelp, as you say, as you think you are. You're really not. And as you get better at recognizing that stuff, and as you get more comfortable with recognizing that maybe it isn't happening as much as you think it is, or it's being balanced out by these other good things, you're going to start feeling less like you're crappy because you have some proof that you're not, right? Next time you feel like, ugh, God, I'm having such a rough time, I must be worthless. You can think back like, no, wait, yesterday when I wrote in my journal, I got like 4 things done. I cleaned my room and I ate food and I made sure I drank enough water and I like called my mom, right? Like it doesn't have to be big stuff. You don't have to win a Nobel Prize every fucking day. So you'll have some stuff you can come back at that shitty feeling and be like, whoa, hold on a minute, right? So that helps for some people. I keep a list of the things that I do so that I don't forget to do anything. But it's really nice to look back to days where I was like, man, what a stressful day. Oh wait, no, like I did some good shit. I did like 3 good things yesterday. That's nice. So that's helped me. That's something that I think might help you too. And you will find as you get a better relationship with yourself, as you develop that empathy for yourself, As you start to give yourself some room to be a person, you'll start recognizing other people's struggles. You'll start seeing other people and the hard work that they are doing that might seem invisible otherwise. You'll start to think when you see somebody else struggling, or when someone feels like you feel like someone let you down, right? You're expecting somebody to call you or expecting someone to do something they said they would and they don't do it, and you get angry about them because if you can pull your shit together, obviously so can they. You'll start to recognize that it's hard to be a person for everyone. Like, everybody has this stuff going on. We're all coping with stuff, and we're all, to varying degrees, working on shit. And I think that as you develop self-empathy, there will be ripples that will spread out to other people, and you'll start to see that they're going through shit too. And as you start to build that empathy, it'll make it easier to relate to those people, right? Because if nothing else, if we as human beings share nothing else, it's that life is incredibly difficult. We are all suffering, and at least we can acknowledge that, right? At least we all have that in common. Maybe that's a good place to start. So this one's a bit of a long one. Question number 2 is coming to us from Trevi, and she has, it's a big one. I'll read it to you, but small font city, here we come. And it's okay. It's all right, Trevi. It's fine. Sometimes these things feel like they need some explanation. So Trevi says, my parents have struggled with their relationship for a long time, and they are on their way to a divorce. I've always been very close to my mom, and we went through some tough things together while my dad was working abroad. Then I went off to university, and since then, I don't see my dad more than twice a year. My dad and I, we didn't really know each other much. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've been trying to build a relationship with him so he doesn't feel abandoned by the family. He's also not close to my brother, so you might be able to see a trend here. I used to think it was just because he's a bit of an introvert, but now that I've opened Pandora's box, I see that he has all these expectations of how I'm supposed to be. He blames me for not calling him often enough. Even when he forgot my birthday, his instincts aren't to apologize, but to excuse himself from the issue. I've never heard him apologize ever. I want to have a better relationship, and I put in steps to make it better. Calling him more, trying to have a more personal conversation, have a trip planned with the two of us. But he makes me so angry and frustrated because to be that daughter, I feel like I have to hide many parts of who I am. I hate it. He doesn't like fantasy. He thinks anything like AC/DC is too hardcore and bad. He seems just so entitled, and he thinks he's always right. How can I have a relationship with him if he expects me to be someone I'm not when I'm around him? I'm trying to make this relationship work. Is it even worth it? And if I don't, why do I end up feeling guilty? Parents. So I have a lot of reasons why I don't want to have children. Now, none of them are that I don't like kids, because I do. I think kids are great. I think that we underestimate how much kids have to offer just as kids, not like they'll grow up to be someone valuable, but there are a lot of kids that I have met that are really great people already. It's that I think that the world is a pretty fucked up place, and that it's very, I don't feel like I want to put someone in a position where I can be in this place with them, right? I think the world is stressful enough, and I don't know how to be a parent, and the only way to learn how to be a parent is to just be one, and you fuck it up. And what we're seeing here is just your dad fucking it up. Your dad's fucking up being a dad. This isn't to say that he's not trying. It isn't to say that he doesn't want to be better. But yo, Trevi, you are doing all of the work, and your dad is getting away with being kind of shitty to you. Okay, maybe a lot shitty. And it doesn't sound to me like Pops here is really making an effort, right? It's just expecting you to do all the work. One thing that I think helps me when I'm trying to negotiate what can feel like arbitrary or obligatory relationships, which we have a lot of, right? Everybody has relationships in their life that they probably wouldn't choose. We have relationships with our boss. We have relationships with our friends, partners. We have relationships with our partners' parents. We have relationships with our own siblings or parents or uncles or aunts or, dad in this case. So that's a thing that we deal with. Everybody has those relationships in our lives. And it would be super cool if we could just be like, I will just cut out everyone that I don't want to have a relationship with. But sometimes those relationships are an important part of a larger network. There are reasons why you might feel like you should have a relationship with your dad, right? There is a lot of negative social pressure for being the one that cuts off that relationship. But here's the thing. This is what helps me. If I have to have a relationship with someone, I will have it at whatever minimum level is required for me to get the other things that I need, right? But if I think that I want to have a relationship, right? If I was in Trevi's position here where it was like, I want to try. Sometimes we try having relationships with people who don't put in as much effort as we do. That's normal. That happens. But I would think about if this person were not my dad, what would this relationship be built on? Because somebody donating genetic material to conjure you from nothing is not a basis of a relationship. Someone raising you from childhood, it's not the basis of a relationship. It can inform a relationship, but you shouldn't have a relationship with someone just because they did that. That was their choice. You didn't ask to be born. It was your parents' job to make sure you survived and make you into a good person, for whatever degree of credit that they get. And I gotta say, like, Trevi, you're doing a good job being a person, despite your dad having a rough time doing the same. I have a deep suspicion that your mom probably also did a lot of work to get you where you are. I'm reading into this, and obviously we don't have like a full, deep, long-term understanding of Trevi's relationship with her dad here, but like there's some gendered stuff going on here, right? Dad expecting his daughter to put in more emotional labor than he is. Dad never apologizing. Dad blaming you for not maintaining that connection. Those things are dude things. Those are masculine influences on this relationship. Like this relationship, and I wonder if Trevi has siblings. I wonder like if Trevi has a brother. I mean, we know, right? Not close to your brother, but I wonder how their relationship is different. Not Trevi, but Trevi's brother and their dad. There's some gendered stuff going on here, and you're struggling against that too. So what do you do? Well, the flip answer is fuck this guy, right? Get him out of your life. You don't need him. He's your dad, sure, but he sounds like an asshole. You have no common ground besides your genetic material. Your mom and your dad aren't even going to be together anymore, and so you will not have to see this person. This whole thing of like spending 3 years to try to build a relationship with somebody who, if it wasn't your dad, you just wouldn't have a relationship. Do not waste any more time or energy on this person. Be done with it. That's the flip answer, right? Like get rid of this dude. He's not good for you. And I feel like this is the kind of answer that I would give you if you were talking about a friend, like much more easily. If you were talking about a boyfriend, we would already be all over telling you to just bail out. But we have this thing where we think that we give people a lot of leeway to be shitty to us because we are related to them, because we have this built-in history. So, Trevi, if that's all you need is like exemption from guilt, go forth. Go forth, my child. Get rid of this nerd, right? You are not responsible for fixing your relationship with him. You are not responsible for building it. A relationship requires multiple parties to work. 3 years is a long time. You don't need this nerd. But this is the thing about Pandora's box, right? So we always remember that Pandora, she opened the box and all the monsters came out. And it's a metaphor for like letting that first step lead us into a world full of monsters. But the rest of the story is that at the bottom of the box, the thing that's left when all the monsters have fled out into the world is hope. And like, I feel like it's trite, but there might be something to that. But let's talk about hope in this situation, right? So Trevi, the hope here doesn't have to be hope that your dad will come around. The hope here doesn't have to be that you will have a good relationship with your dad and suddenly you will be able to talk about Gimli and distortion pedals with your dad. The hope is that you are going to be okay despite having this experience. Your job, and now that you've dug into this box full of monsters, isn't to take that hope and give it away. That hope is for you. I think sometimes we misinterpret the idea of hope as a reason to keep doing something that will never change. A reason to keep suffering because someday it will be better. But I think that you can have hope that you will be able to get out of this situation intact. No relationship is more important than the health and well-being of the people in it. Even if the best possible situation happens and you manage to get your dad to come around and start acting nice to you, you've already put in so much time and energy, and dealt with guilt and exhaustion, and take care of you, please. Like take care of Trevi, because you deserve to feel comfortable and safe and happy, and you deserve to have relationships in your life that aren't bringing you down. So focus on those. Focus on your relationship with your mom. Focus on your relationship with your friends. And you can tell if you want to, you can talk to your dad about this. You can say like, look, Pops, I have been putting in all of this energy trying to make this relationship work, and it can't because I'm doing all the work and you are doing none of the work. So unless you are willing to step up, Dad, unless you are willing to put in time and energy and effort, that's it. Because father or no, this person is still a human being that you have a relationship with. And that's by choice. You don't have to. And I would rather see you be guilt-free and happy than to continue suffering trying to make your dad come around. If people want to change, they'll change. And life is long. Life is long, and there is a lot to it. And just because you take some distance from your dad now doesn't mean that won't help your dad come around. And in a couple of years, maybe your dad will reach out and be like, hey, so I've been thinking about this. I've been doing this work. I fucked up. I'm going to put in some effort, and is that okay? Can we make this work? Right? But you don't have to do all of that. It's not on you, Trevi. It's on Dad to be a better person. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry that he's not. Because I think it's one of the like saddest feelings, where you want to have a relationship with someone. You want to be their friend. You want to be their partner. You want to continue, having a good relationship with a family member, but you want them to be better for that to be possible. And then you have to make this decision, like, do I just accept that they're shitty and I do the extra work to bring that up, to fix that, hoping that they'll change? Or do I say goodbye? And I know you don't want either of those things. But you get to focus on what makes you happy. And I'm sorry that your dad is not contributing, I guess is what I'm saying. Our third question today, our last question of today's episode, comes from Rook. And this question is, it's a bit similar to our first one, but it's about being nice and what that looks like. So Rook says, to get right to it, I'm codependent as fuck. It's good, Rook, that you were self-aware in that regard. As a hyper-empathic fat girl with an emotionally abusive home life, I learned taking care of people is the only way I had any worth. That's not true, but we'll get back to that. I'm improving with years of therapy, but it'll always be part of my programming I have to account for. When it's not coming from a place of dysfunction, caring about other people is nice for everyone involved, right? Lately, I feel anxious about whether my caring for others is still too much. So I wanted to ask for external insight. How much is too much? How comfortable do you feel with someone who cares about you a lot? Now, this cares a lot is all in caps. Who cares a lot about you? When does it start to feel smothering? I know it'll differ between people in relationships. I'm just hoping for a general lay of the land regarding boundaries and expectations. I think it might help my confidence in relating to others and maybe even help me notice if or how other people, normal people, show they care about me. Thanks for everything you do. So first off, Rook, and I think you know this, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded. You are worth more than the degree to which you can take care of people. If every other person on the earth evaporated, you would still have value as a person, even if there was no one to be nice to. So you are obviously aware of that and that that's an issue and that you're going to therapy for it. And the question isn't really, how do I stop feeling that way? Because Brooke's got that. She's got that handled. It's, how do I know how much caring and how I express that caring is enough or too much? How do I not weird people out by doing too much for them? And how do we negotiate boundaries and expectations with people around that? I think you just have to ask. I have learned over time that the way that people express that they care about someone varies so wildly that when it comes to this topic, we might as well all be speaking different languages. And there is a school of thought around this called love languages, and I fucking hate the term, and I think it's pretty reductive. But as a framework for understanding the way you express love and affection, and more importantly, acknowledging that other people express love and affection very differently than you do, will help you understand being around people. And I look at this experience, I look at this learning experience as something fun and positive that you can do with people. When you sit down to talk to them about your relationship, or when you notice patterns and you bring them up, it's a way to get to know them better. It's an intimate process, right? For me, for example, let me give you some personal examples. So for me, I my most limited resource is time. I have lots of other things to give, but my most valuable thing is time. So spending 3 hours straight hanging out with somebody in person is incredibly valuable to me, right? That is a huge way of saying, I care about you. I am interested in you. You are meaningful to me. Here is my time. And to the same degree, spending time with people online, playing games together, just having conversations online with them. Like if I spend 20 minutes talking to somebody on Discord, that's an act of care on my part. I'm taking something that I don't have very much of, and I'm dedicating it to somebody, to engaging with them. It's a way I show that I care about people and things. But that's not true for everybody else, right? For other people, time is abundant or not as valuable, right? Time is something that is a given that they necessarily need simply to have a relationship in the first place. For me, when I receive, like the thing that feels like the most affection for me in a received form is it feels really nice for me when people pay attention to me. In the sense that not like dedicating their attention, but when they listen to me. Like if somebody remembers something that I said to them, or they remember something that I like, or they show me that I'm not just talking into the empty air when we're together. That's really nice. Or when people do things for me. I had a friend who I was complaining to them that I didn't have time to go in and get my car windshield fixed. It had a chip in it. And I was like, I know I have to fix it, and I just don't have time to like drive it out there and get it fixed and pick my car up. Like I'm too busy. And this friend was like, well, fuck it, I'll do it. Like I got 3 days, I'm not doing anything. I will just come over. I will get the keys. I will drive your car to the place. I'll fuck around downtown while they fix it, and I will drive it back, and I will give you the keys, and you don't have to do anything. And I swear to God, I nearly cried. It meant so much to me to take that weight off of my shoulders because I was stressing about it. I was worrying about it. But for other people, it wasn't a big deal for them. Like they were just like, oh, whatever. Like, I don't care. Plus I get to like drive your car and like I can run an errand and like, it's not a big deal for them. They had that time available. So there is, and not to get like, I was just saying not to get too political about it, but like, relationship Marxism is a thing, right? And I think that love languages is really like, if you want to frame it in the way Karl Marx would, it's about knowing what you have to offer and giving it to people who need it, right? It's about from each according to their ability. I have things that I can offer. I can offer mentorship. I can offer emotional support. I can offer someone to like listen to people's problems. I can offer. I have lots to give, but there are things that I need too, right? So it's recognizing what I have to give, and then using that to make other people's lives better, the people that I care about, and then they do the same thing. So obviously, what Rook has a lot of is expressing care, right? And I don't know what that looks like for Rook. I don't know how that gets expressed, but Rook has a surplus of like desire to help or desire to like make people feel good. And you can talk about that exchange, right, Rook? You can say to your friends like, hey, it really feels nice for me to be able to message you a couple of times a day and just like say nice things, you know? Like DM you on Twitter and be like, hey, you're posting really funny stuff today. Or like, call you at lunch and leave you a voicemail and say, hey, I hope you're having a nice day. Right? That stuff feels good for Rook. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what makes Rook feel good, but make an inventory, Rook, of those things and then tell that to a person. Say, it makes me feel good when I can do this for you. How does that feel for you? Because for some people, and I was having a conversation about this last night, actually. I want to talk about a phrase and how the way we express things can get confused. So I have a phrase that when people say it to me, I immediately feel guilty. I feel shame. I feel like I am failing them. So when somebody tells me, hey, Adam, I miss you, that makes me feel really, really bad. Because I feel like they're telling me, like, fix it, right? Spend more time with me. We haven't talked in a long time, and I feel like we're drifting. I feel disconnected from you. Now, they're not saying any of that stuff. They might be saying, like, hey, I was thinking about you today. Or, hey, somebody on Twitter mentioned that show that we did together, and it made me miss doing the show. Or I'm just having, like, positive feelings about our previous experiences together, but I hear you're failing me as a friend. I hear we should spend more time together, and I'm upset with you that we don't. This kind of thing happens in relationships all the time, where people attempt either through words or actions to express a feeling. And the person that is doing the expressing, getting expressed upon, they hear something totally different. Like, for example, we are speaking different languages. So what we need is the common tongue, right? What you need is to be able to sit down, Rook, and instead of asking me what is normal, ask the people in your life and make it a positive thing, right? This isn't like, oh God, am I smothering you? It's, here's a bunch of stuff that makes me feel good. How does that feel for you? What stuff makes you feel good? What kinds of stuff can we do? Like having someone tell me, I had this happen. I had someone tell me, I stress out about money a lot. And when you buy me lunch, when we hang out, like if you buy lunch or dinner, or you like buy me little presents, or like one time I bought this person something they were looking at in a store because I knew they couldn't afford it and I knew they really wanted it. So I just bought it for them. They were like, because I stress out about money, that is so nice. That shows me like I can have things that I normally would feel guilty about getting, right? We can hang out and we can do stuff. And if you pay for it, it makes me feel less like I'm sacrificing my fiscal well-being. And I felt so good hearing that because I was like, good, that's what I want. I want you to feel nice. I want you to appreciate it. Because if you were just like, why do you keep buying me lunch? I don't care. Then it's pointless. I'm wasting my energy. But knowing that that was something that this person felt good about made me feel good. And then we both felt good. And that's what you want in your relationships, right? You want to know what you can do to be happy. This is the thing that we all have our brain trying to convince us to do, right? Seek greater happiness. And you can't do that by accident, right? It doesn't just happen. I mean, Rook, you nailed it on the head, right? When you said it differs between people and relationships. There is no general lay of the land. The only general lay of the land is if you care about people, talk to them. Share that. I thought it was telling, and I think this is fairly common for people who think of themselves as like helpers or carers or caretakers. You notice Rook didn't mention her own experiences with like other people doing things that felt nice. There was no attempt in this question to say, well, when this happens to me, I feel good. I'm curious, Rook. I'm curious about what makes you happy. You know? I want to know what makes you feel good. And I want you to know that, right? I want you to be aware of that too. Because once you're aware of it, you can share that with your friends. Because this needs to be a two-way street, right? Don't make this conversation, hey, how do you feel about me being nice to you? Okay, great, bye. Make the conversation, let's talk about our friendship, right? Let's okay, you want a good example? You want a live example? Okay, so Tristare, who's a good friend of mine, someone I care deeply about, just said in chat, hey, Adam, I really like when you make deep cut rap references, and I get it, and make emoji faces at you in chat. I like that too. That makes me feel seen and good too. I really like it. And I will make those references when I see you in chat because I know you will hear me and that you'll get them. That makes me feel like close to you. I also like it when you threaten to fight me in the parking lot because I understand that that is a way that you express affection. I also like when you shitpost on the internet. That stuff is funny. That makes me happy. And I like that I get it. I like feeling like I'm inside your little bubble of inside jokes. That stuff's really valuable to me. Let's keep doing those things. It's that easy. It's so easy. That's all you have to do. Is just tell people the things in your relationship that you value and that you like and what it feels like when they do things. That's it. That's how you do it. Now, it's different because some people will say, I don't know, right? And that's okay. You can say, let's try. Right? Like, if you say to somebody, if I text message you 4 or 5 times a day, or I like send you pictures on Twitter or whatever, I Snapchat you, how does that feel? Is it too much? Do you feel overwhelmed? Do you feel like you have to reply? And they say, I don't know. Sometimes you can say, okay, well, let's try it. Maybe you can think about that. Maybe you can take some advice from our first question asker, and you can like just be aware of your emotions when these things happen. It's a whole know thyself thing, right? So I don't know, Rook. Take a hot minute and think about what makes you feel good in relationships. And then pick somebody. Pick somebody you trust. Pick somebody you care about. Somebody you think this conversation will be easy with. And bring it up. Just be like, yo, how does it feel? How does this feel when I'm like giving you this attention? And they'll tell you. And you'll say, cool. Well, when you do these things, it makes me feel really nice. Maybe you could do more of those things. Or like, how would you feel if I asked you to do this stuff? And those conversations are sometimes hard, but I think you'll find that your friends want you to be happy. Or maybe they're not your friends. Like, I have to assume that anyone that identifies themselves as a friend of mine wants me to be happy and do well and comfortable, and they don't want me to be sad and miserable. So I have to trust them to do things that make me feel good when I ask for them. I could do a better job of it. I think we all could, right? Like I could ask for help more often. I'm bad at it, but I could ask. I could have asked my friend to take my car in for me. I didn't have to wait for them to suggest it, but it would never have occurred to me. It's not an easy thing. So like with question asker number 1, be patient with yourself. Be patient with your friends. Look at it as a project. I look at every conversation about a relationship as a beneficial thing, even if it's a hard conversation, because learning things about your friends is valuable. I think for me, learning things about people is a way that they can show that they care about me. They trust me with that information. Getting to be on somebody's like friends only Instagram story feed might be like a little thing for them, but to me, it's a big deal. It makes me really happy to notice stuff like that. Being invited to group chats, just like being a part of things that I'm invited to by my friends makes me feel like close and special, right? These kinds of conversations are an expression of affection for me. So find what yours are. And that's advice not just for Rook, but for everybody, right? Know what makes you happy, because if you don't know that, you can't pursue it. Safety, happiness, fulfillment, whatever is impossible to get if you don't know what it looks and feels like. So figure that out. Think about it. Make that your homework. In the next couple of days, just like sit down for a hot minute and think about things that your friends have done to make you happy. Think about things that have expressed positively to you your relationship with your friends. Just pick a couple. I bet you could do it. I believe in you. So if you have burning questions, if you have things that you would like to ask, or you just have some topics you want me to talk about, you can do that. That's how the show works. You're already halfway there. Go to the website, www.adam-coble.com. Just go there and fill out that form. Let me know what your question is. You could use your real name. You could use a fake made-up name. You could use a cool hacker alias. I don't care. Submit the question, and in the future, I will answer it, or a question very much like it. There is, as you can see, like a lot of overlap. So yeah, please. The show would not exist without your questions, and it is a nice way for me to feel like I am connected to you. And I hope that this show helps you connect with yourself and with other people around you. And that'll do it. That's episode number 30. I have been Adam Coble, just like every other episode. Still me. This has been Hot for Teacher. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. I really appreciate it. We'll see you next time.